The 49ers might lose their defensive coordinator again. The Atlanta Falcons have requested permission to interview Steve Wilks for their vacant head coaching job, and this, I think, has legs. Remember, the Chargers requested permission to interview Steve Wilks, and that one felt more like a Rooney Rule thing because the Chargers just fired a defensive coach. They have an elite quarterback, and they're in like a prime spot to hire a high-profile, expensive offensive coach. So that's just the way I see it for the Chargers. Falcons are different. The Falcons just fired an offensive coach. And the way I see it, bad teams that have no identity or conviction about how they want to build a team often oscillate back and forth between offensive coach and defensive coach because they don't know what they want to do. Falcons fit that description. They had Dan Quinn and Kyle Shanahan. Head coach Dan Quinn, defensive coach Kyle Shanahan, offensive coordinator. It's the best they've ever really been in a long time. It was a winning formula for them. They lost Kyle Shanahan. They fired Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn's still a good coach. They tried to replace him with an offensive guy. He was a terrible coach, Arthur Smith. They got rid of him. And now, what are they going to do? Well, they've requested permission to interview Steve Wilks. Why does this make sense to me? Well, you're going back to a defensive coach, and he's from the Shanahan tree. He's had experience before. He was really quite successful with the Panthers last year as an interim coach, the most successful coach they've had in a while. And he could bring with him an offensive coach from Shanahan's staff, someone such as Anthony Lynn or Clint Kubiak. And they could sort of recreate what they had 7-8 years ago when they were good. I think this makes a ton of sense. I think this is going to happen. Now that you mention it, I think that Falcons are going to end up hiring Steve Wilks if he can bring either Lynn or Kubiak with him. I'm thinking probably Kubiak because what the Falcons can say is that they're doing what the Texans did. The Texans had 3 wins last season, hired DeMeco Ryans, who brought in Bobby Slowick. Now they're 10-7 in the playoffs. Now they did get a good quarterback. And the Falcons are going to have to do that. But they could tell themselves we're basically doing the same thing the Texans did. And we'll see if this Shanahan tree coaching staff can find the right quarterback. I think it's going to happen, which means the Niners probably get a comp pick and they'll have to find another defensive coordinator. And I don't know. Maybe they'll just bring in Bill Belichick, huh? No, I don't know. They could elevate Daniel Bullocks. That seems to be the guy who's next in line. Or they could get someone from outside the organization. I don't know. It hasn't happened yet, but I think this is going to happen. Steve Wilks and Clint Kubiak and or Anthony Lynn to the Falcons. Makes sense to me.